Hey folks, and welcome to iWizard. Today I'm going to be taking you through a Mondo book haul. I've got some surprises for you, and also we're going to be talking about some channel plans, so stay tuned. All right, Jordan here. So I'm sorry, I've got a very scratchy voice. I think I'm getting sick. But here we are. It's almost May, and I've got another epic book haul for you guys. I've got a big pile of books here just waiting to be introduced to the world, and we're going to discuss some important channel plans for the future here as well. So without further ado, why don't we start digging into this pile? And we're going to start with new books. All right, so first up we have Stormbringer. This is volume 2 in the Elric saga by Michael Moorcock. You have the forward here by Michael Chabon. Some really beautiful illustrations in this one. Got the nice little map in here. Hope you can see that. So this is the second installment of Michael Moorcock's famous Elric of Melniboné series, and so here is what Amazon says about it. In one of the most well-known and well-loved fantasy epics of the 20th century, Elric is the brooding albino emperor of the dying kingdom of Melniboné. After defeating his nefarious cousin and gaining control over the epic sword Stormbringer, Elric, Prince of Ruins, must decide what he's willing to sacrifice in a fight against Armageddon. And if you've been following this channel, you know I also purchased the first one here. This is volume 1 of the Elric saga here. And yeah, these books are just really beautiful, really truly magnificent art in these. Just really great stuff. You know, I don't know why, I'm just very attracted to the sword and sorcery genre, that good old-fashioned pulpy stuff. And if you're interested in audiobooks, the audiobook is narrated by Samuel Rucan, who is the narrator for the Sun Eater series. So if you like that good old-fashioned pulpy stuff, Robert E. Howard, you know, Clark Ashton Smith, Roger Zelazny, this is where it's at. Michael Moorcock, the Fantasy Lifetime Achievement Award winner. And so I really think that you're going to like that one, and I just wanted to show you my new book. Okay, so up next, we have Book 2 of the Coldfire trilogy, and that is When True Night Falls by C.S. Friedman. That's Celia S. Friedman, by the way. And let me tell you guys, I read book 1 of this series. Book 1 is called Black Sun Rising, and I really enjoyed it. It's everything that I kind of want in 80s fantasy, right? Kind of over-the-top, fun 80s fantasy. So I can tell you about this one, but I can't tell you very much about this one. So basically, over 1,000 years ago, refugees from Earth colonized this planet, Erna, but after the settlers arrived, they realized that there was this natural force of energy called the Fae that dominated the entire planet and controlled and like animated the thoughts and emotions of all living creatures, so that your nightmares even could be brought to life. And so this Fae thing almost destroyed these settlers until some humans figured out how to manipulate the Fae to become basically sorcerers. And then you get this whole religion based around keeping mankind immune from the Fae's manipulations. And so that's just the background. But basically, when the events of the novel begin, humans have been in a kind of stalemate with the Fae for like 900 years. But now, and this is kind of the premise, a dark force fed by the sorcerous use of the Fae has grown to become a new and powerful threat. So that's just a little taste of the kind of premise of this book. But this is one of those books, I remember I read it over the summer like 4 or 5 years ago. My wife and I were house and dog sitting at this huge place with an in-ground pool, and I just remember sitting by the poolside reading this book and just loving it. So now I'm planning to reread this very soon, and I'll definitely do a full review, because here's the thing. This is one of those books where I don't really remember the plot that well, but it's kind of stayed with me in an odd way. Like I can't get it out of my head. And I remember how amazing this fantasy world is. And there are just so many cool concepts and story elements that have to do with the Fae, because in this world, the Fae is not treated like typical magic. It's more like a natural force, like gravity. Anyways, I remember liking the characters and the world, but I am forgetting some of the plot, some of the story, which is not to say that the story is bad or anything. It's just that I'm kind of blanking on exactly kind of what happens. And I'll say this is kind of science fantasy, right, rather than just straight fantasy. But ultimately, I do think that it leans much more heavily on the fantasy. And another thing I really liked about this series is that the species evolve much faster on Erna, whereas, you know, it takes human beings on Earth thousands, even millions of years to evolve in any significant way. On Erna, it takes only 2 or 3 generations. And so the planet has like this fluid quality that's just really interesting. And so this is the sequel, and I am excited to get back into this series. Alrighty, so next up we have The Warrior's Apprentice. This is the second book in the Vorkosigan saga by Lois McMaster Bujold. This is the NESFA Press, or something like that. I think that's what it's called. Hardcover edition. This came out in 2002. So the first book is called Shards of Honor, and it's really good. I've reviewed that book on the channel, so you can check that out when you get a chance. That first book tells the story of Cordelia Naismith, you can see her there, and her star-crossed lover, Errol Vorkosigan, you can see him there. So it's kind of like a Baton, someone who's from the Baton world versus a Baryaran. He's a Baryaran. She's a scientist, he's an Imperial commander. They're kind of star-crossed lovers, and they start out as foes, and eventually they get stuck together and fall in love. So this book has got everything. It's a space opera adventure with some military, sci-fi, and drama, and a kind of clash of cultures. Really great characters. There's all sorts of political stuff going on too here with this one. So with The Warrior's Apprentice here, we learn that the first book was really just a prequel that kind of sets up the rest of the series. The rest of the series isn't going to be about Cordelia and Errol. Book 2 begins to tell the story of our real protagonist, Miles Vorkosigan, who is the son of Cordelia and Errol. And so here is a vague description from Amazon. Discharged from the Baryaran Academy after flunking the physical, a discouraged Miles Vorkosigan takes possession of a jump ship and becomes the leader of a mercenary force that expands to a fleet of treasonous proportions. So this sounds great, and I can't wait to get into this. One of the truly underappreciated series and underappreciated authors of all time in sci-fi. All right, so let's get to the books that some indie writers and even published authors sent me, and we've got a couple here. First one is Frontier by Patrick Chiles. Chiles, I'm not sure how he pronounces it. I'm actually Facebook friends with Patrick, so I probably should learn at this point how to pronounce his name. But this is a Bain book. Bain does some really good stuff with military sci-fi and that sort of thing. So we're going to read this. The future belongs to the strong of heart. Marshall Hunter only wanted to fly. The faster, the higher, the better. But Space Force has other plans for him. Interplanetary search and rescue. Now a high-profile billionaire couple goes missing on their way to survey a near-Earth asteroid. The nuclear-powered Borman is dispatched on an audacious, breakneck interplanetary run to find the couple's wayward spacecraft and bring them home. At the same time, cislunar space falls into chaos as critical satellites fail and valuable lunar mineral shipments disappear in transit. Facing an impossible choice between salvation and sacrifice, Marshall Hunter has to find a way to save both his crewmates and space-age civilization itself from an implacable foe. Okay, so this looks really interesting. I got the signature here. I think it came also with a bookmark. I think I tucked it in here somewhere. I'm not sure where it is. Anyways, very nice. Give this one a read. It looks great. All right, next up, this guy sent me a bunch of books. This is Zeros by Zach Ziz. I'm friends with this author on Discord, and so he messaged me and sent me some of his books. And his pen name is Zach Ziz, which is really interesting. Got a little signature here on the inside. He says, "Stay frosty, Jordan." So very cool. Kind of a long description, but it looks like there are some definitely sci-fi, a little bit of space opera. The year is 5257, the year of the metal rat. So this guy uses satire and humor and a lot of swear words. So if you're not a big fan of that, this might not be for you, but looks really, really interesting. And the books, I don't know if you can see this, the book is beautiful, really well made. And it looks like you've got all this really interesting stuff in here, Chinese letters. And of course, speaking of the Enlightenment and the Romantic period, you have Voltaire. "Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities." So that excellent, very famous Voltaire quote there. So he sent me these other ones, Right to Bear Arms. This looks really interesting. This is a cold and desolate New York story. So that looks good. This one is like a novella. This one, I love the art here on this one. This is Survival Mode. Marooned on an alien moon, teeming with hostile life, utterly alone, no hope of rescue, no way to call home, can Kay possibly survive? Isn't Kay the main character of The Trial by Kafka? Seems like some of this guy's writing is a little bit Kafka-esque. You know, how can characters get out of these absurd situations? And then this one I think is going to be the one that I read first. It's called Hawks at the Diner. And this guy just has some amazing, amazing covers. Really beautiful stuff. Some excellent art. This guy really goes over the top. Love it. You love to see it. So this one is, "Mr. President, you are going to jail. A lunch meeting becomes a vicious showdown when the president-elect threatens to jail her predecessor. But President Rupert Cohen has a secret that will change everything. Sate your hunger for intrigue with this ambitious tale of power, politics, and pastrami." So this guy definitely uses humor. I was flipping through this one, and it looks funny and interesting, and so I can't wait to dive into it. Okay, so a pretty good haul this month. Thank you guys for sending me those books. I really appreciate it. And so I've got a bunch of books that I want to read in the coming months that I want to review. And what I wanted to do at the end here is get your help a little bit. I was talking to one of my patrons, Daniel, about my channel plans, and I was telling him I've got the next 2 weeks or so planned out. That is, if I don't die from whatever I have right now. The next book that I'm going to review is book 1 in the Licanius trilogy. I'm going to be doing a discussion with Don Watkins. He's an author and he works at the Ayn Rand Institute. So we'll be asking an expert about the Fountainhead, and we'll see what he has to say about that. After that, I'm going to be reviewing The Never-Ending Story by Michael Enda. Most people don't even know that The Never-Ending Story is also a book. I kind of grew up loving the 80s movie. It was a staple of my childhood. And so people tell me the first 3/4 of this book is pretty much the same as the movie, but I'm looking forward to, to getting into this. So that is what I'm doing next. But after that, guys, I have some options that I want to actually run by you. I'd like to begin thinking about the coming months, late May, June, July, and I was hoping to get your advice. I was hoping you guys would comment below and tell me which order you want me to review these books in. I'm going to run through some of the books I'm planning to read and that I'm planning to review. And so these are in no particular order. I have no idea what order I'm going to go in. So I'm hoping you guys can let me know which ones I should get to first. Like, what would be your #1 pick? Okay, so we already talked about the Elric saga by Michael Moorcock. We already talked about that one. So let me know if you want me to do that. After Never-Ending Story, we've got the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant by Stephen R. Donaldson. So this first book, I know this is a crappy copy, but if you want to purchase me a nicer copy, it is on my Amazon wish list. So this series is comprised of 10 books, and it's one of those series that mixes subgenres. So it's got elements of grimdark, but it also has elements of high fantasy. And as I said in my high fantasy video, I'm told that Donaldson is probably the only guy who has been able to successfully pull off that mix of high fantasy and grimdark. This is a book that kind of feels like Tolkien, but at the same time, it subverts Tolkien. It's got elements of that classic, beautiful, lush prose, something like you get in Middle-earth, but it also has a real dark side. It has a very dark, morally compromised main character. So this book is kind of portal fantasy as well. It starts out in our world with the main character, Thomas Covenant, who is like this cynical writer who's done a lot of bad things. He actually has leprosy, which is really weird. The guy is like missing parts of his body and he can't touch things because he'll like fall apart. So he always has to check to see if he's injuring himself. And so, of course, he's this outcast. And what happens is I guess, it goes to the hospital for something that happens to him. And I think he's in the hospital. I don't remember. Anyhow, there's something that happens where he is transported to this fantasy world. He wakes up in this fantasy world. He's been summoned there, I guess, by some wizard. And when he gets there, he no longer has his leprosy. And the people all think that he's this legendary hero who's like the second coming, born again, Christ-like figure. So he has to save the world, right? So it's kind of that plot. It's similar to Neverending Story. So this book is apparently notorious for its expansive, eccentric vocabulary and the terminology it uses. Wow, I am losing my voice, so I'm not going to be able to go that much longer. So another one that I'm going to be reading is The Chronicles of Amber by Roger Zelazny. So these are 10 books, and they're all in this. So this tells the story of Corwin, Prince of Amber, and his son Merlin, who is a magic user and a computer hacker. This sounds really interesting. I've heard a lot of great things about Roger Zelazny. It's 10 books, and they're all in here. Very beautiful cover art. Another one that I'm going to do, and again, guys, let me know what order you want me to do these in. If you're really passionate about one, let me know. I'm going to kind of compile. Actually, Mike from Mike's Books said that he actually wanted me to do this next. So I'd like to hear from you. So let me know, because I truly do want to review things that you want to read, that you want to hear about. And so this is another one. It's The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. She ventured out from the safety of the enchanted forest on a quest for others of her kind. Oh, this is the unicorn lived in a lilac wood, and she lived all alone. She ventured out from the safety of the enchanted forest on a quest for others of her kind. Joined by the bumbling magician Schmendrick and the indomitable Molly Grew, the unicorn learns all about the joys and sorrows of life and love before meeting her destiny in the castle of a despondent monarch and confronting the creature that would drive her kind to extinction. So that's really interesting as well. Another book that I think Nikki and I are going to review together is The Princess Bride. And I think I've shown you this before, but this is the Folio Society edition. Really beautiful art in here, kind of comic book art. So this is The Princess Bride by William Goldman, or is it S. Morgenstern? You guys have all probably seen the movie. It's one of the best comedy films ever made, total classic. So there's this one. I'm definitely going to be doing this with Nikki. Next up is the Song of Ice and Fire. This is another Folio Society edition. You can see the little map in there. Just waiting for the 5th one to come out in Folio Society. But this is, the 7 Kingdoms, the Stark family, the rival house, the Lannisters, the Neverborn demons, the barbarian hordes, and all these other threats, and you have this kind of Machiavellian politics. It's wonderful. I wish I had more time to tell you about it, but I'm thinking of doing a big Song of Ice and Fire read. But I want to hear from you. If you don't want me to do this one, if you would find it more valuable for me to review these other books, please, again, let me know. Again, another book that I'm planning on reviewing soon is the Coldfire trilogy. We talked about that one. The Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe. So this one comes highly recommended by my good buddy, the sci-fi writer Christopher Rocchio. This one is kind of like a dying Earth. It's in the very distant future. The sun has cooled, the sun is dimmed, and the disgraced torturer Severian is recounting his hard-fought rise to power. So this is said to be one of the great all-time science fantasy stories. It's very literary, notoriously difficult and dense, and again using very kind of difficult vocabulary words. But I've always wanted to read these books, and now I have a good reason, because Christopher and I are going to be doing a live stream discussion together after I read the first book. So that is something I'm very excited about. We got The Prince of Nothing by R. Scott Baker. This is the Prince of Nothing series. The first book is The Darkness That Came Before. This is one I've actually read, but I'd need to reread it if I'm going to do the whole series. This is grimdark. It's very gritty. Lots of violence. Lots of rape. Sorcerers. Complex politics. A lot of philosophy. This is a very philosophical series. So that's that one. Let me know if you want me to do that one. I know Brent was telling me he wanted me to do this one. I'd also like to continue with The Lost Fleet by Jack Campbell. I reviewed the first one on this channel, so check that out. And then, of course, I'm going to keep reviewing those Vorkosigan Saga books. So, guys, please let me know which books you want me to do first of those ones at the end that I just showed you all in a row. What are you most interested in? What should I focus my attentions on? And that sort of thing. Okay, guys, that is going to be it for me. Please help me out on Patreon. Become a patron. You'll get this fancy bookmark. You get stickers. You get a card. You get a pint glass and that sort of thing, depending on the tier that you're in. Please click the subscribe button. Get in touch with me on Facebook and Goodreads, and I will talk to you later after I am done with my cough syrup and my naps. So see you next time.